Hey, good morning. This is Mayor Valensky with Driving Markets just before a big holiday weekend. You've got Hanukkah, you've got obviously the Christmas holiday, and you've got the New Year coming up for 2023. So let's just have a quick look what has been driving markets yesterday and what's likely to drive markets up until the end of the year. Okay, so big news. First of all, anything said in this piece is an opinion only. Okay, it's not financial advice, it's not investment advice. I do get a lot of responses, a lot of comments, a lot of questions. Can you give advice? Can you advise me? Can you help me? I can help on a macro scale, but don't give advice, because advice would mean that you could end losing money and you could end up suing me. So I don't give advice, it's an opinion only. So let's kick off. Okay, so a couple of big news. We've got to discuss FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. We've got to discuss GDP. We've got to discuss Micron Technology. We've got to discuss Tesla. And obviously got to discuss the whole move in the Japanese yen this week. So let's get on with it and let's get this driving market broadcast kicked off. Okay, first of all, Sam Bankman-Fried was arraigned in court yesterday in New York, released on $250 million bail, the highest bail bond ever in the history of the US. Okay, now his co-conspirators, which is Caroline Ellison and Gary Wan, have now turned into state witnesses, so they become backstabbers. In other words, they were in with Sam Bankman-Fried. However, when the going gets tough, they just simply run. They've admitted or owned up or confessed, whatever the case may be, to any of their so-called crimes, if there are any crimes at all, and they've turned state witnesses against Sam Bankman-Fried. Now, Sam Bankman-Fried, in my opinion, is obviously done something, but I don't know if he's absolutely guilty or the intent was there to do what he did as laid out by the courts. In other words, yes, there's been a complete and utter shenanigans going on with FTX. I don't think it's been money laundering and theft. I think he's tried legitimately to build a platform in the crypto sector that would be a good, honest platform. However, it didn't work out. It looks like he's lost billions, and his, again, Caroline Ellison and Gary Wan, who've turned state witnesses, are going to make sure that he goes down and they are going to go scot-free. I don't think that's fair either, considering they were the co-founders and they knew exactly what was going on. Remember, Gary Wan, he ran the Alameda hedge fund, the FTX hedge fund, so he was also party to the crime or supposed crime that there was carried out at FTX. But that FTX collapse did send shockwaves within the crypto sector, and those shockwaves are going to be felt all the way through to 2023. Remember, they're not the only platform that's gone bust this year. BlockFi also filed for Chapter 11 back in November. Okay, so you're going to have other crypto firms that are also going to go bust or come under extreme liquidity pressure. Moving on. And by the way, that I'm not sure where Bitcoin's going to go now, because I do know that's going to go down, but I did say it's going to go to 15,000 by year end. I've only got in effectively 7, 8, 9 days for that to prove to be the case. Hopefully it will do, because I think Bitcoin needs to go down to well below 10,000. I think the actual crypto sector is going to implode in 2023. It's not going to go back to the levels that they are. Moving on to other things. So yesterday, GDP numbers, gross domestic product numbers, came out in the US much better than expected. Now the GDP in the US, as gross domestic product, GDP, is a measure overall of the health of the economy. Are they producing more goods than importing? Are they actually making a profit? Is the revenue there? Is the revenue of the country there in GDP? And yes, it is. And it went above what analysts were expecting, and the market absolutely tanked. It crashed. Why did it crash? It crashed because that puts more pressure on the US Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank, to raise rates even further, because it's evident that the present rates are not working in cooling off the economy. And if the economy is not going to be cooled off, then the Fed is going to have to take more action to raise rates to cool down the economy. And that's why I say by July next year, rates in the States will be 7%. Again, I'll say it again, rates in the United States of America will be 7%, with inflation running in at probably 10 to 12% by July next year. Looking at inflation, Canada, for example, was expecting inflation to be year on year at 6.7%. It came in higher than expected at 6.8% on Wednesday when they reported their inflation. And Canada is a major G7 economy, so you can expect inflation in the States to go up higher, in Europe, in the UK, and the developed countries across the board. Moving on to Micron Technology. Now, I said earlier on, I haven't spoken about semiconductors for a long time, but I did say earlier on in the year that semiconductors would be under pressure. Correctly, I haven't followed that on from the beginning of the year, but I want to recap on where we're at with semiconductors. Semiconductors are chips, and the chips made on everything we have, whether it's a mobile phone, Samsung, iPhone, cars, washing machines, dryers, hair dryers, computers, everything is semiconductor chips. And Micron Technology, which is a leader in the semiconductor sector, has reported worse than expected profits and a downturn in overall activity, and therefore they forecast that their profits going forward will be less than anticipated, than expected. So that's going to have that sent their shares tanking, and the semiconductor sector in 2023, for those people who trade semiconductors, you can expect the semiconductor sector to be much lower in 2023 and be under significant pressure, especially if we go into recession, because there'll be less goods bought. If less goods are bought, then there's less need for the semiconductor chips, and therefore all those semiconductor AMDs, the NVIDIAs, and the MUs, the Micron Technologies, they're going to be downgraded, and they're going to be the analysts are going to now downgrade their profit forecasts, and therefore the semiconductor sector is going to be under further pressure. Talking about under pressure, Tesla dropped 9% yesterday. Now, if you've been following me on Driving Markets, whether on YouTube, on Instagram, or TikTok, or even on Twitter, what you've seen is that I've been telling you sell Tesla at $230 a share. I said Tesla's going down to $150. As it floated down, I then realigned that and said, you know what, it's going down to $130. It's gone below $130. It's now $126, and Tesla's under pressure. So the next timeline, the next level of where I see Tesla at is probably going to be around about the $115 level. It's going to go down to about $115. I didn't expect to say that. I thought 150 would be the actual bottom, then 130, but now I'm drawing it down to 115. Under pressure because they've got problems with their recent production of the cars and the sales, and they're trying now to offer incentives. Listen to what I've said. They're now trying to offer incentives to buyers to take their cars. Can you believe that? Tesla is looking to offer incentives to purchasers to buy the cars. Who would have thought of that? A year ago, 6 months ago, everyone said Tesla, 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 Tesla. Even though Elon Musk is absolutely brilliant, I love him, the company itself, Tesla, is under pressure, and there's a lot of pressure, financial pressure, to buy out Twitter, and it's going to take huge amounts of resources out of Tesla. Okay, a lot of shares are going to have to be sold, and a lot of bank finance in order to buy out and complete the Twitter purchase, and the relaunching of Twitter is going to cost billions. It's not just the actual purchase itself. The redefine, get rid of all the dead wood, all those flip-flops, t-shirt laden shorts, guys who walk around do nothing apart from drink espressos and cappuccinos. They've all gone, or they will go in the near future. Okay, so you've had Micron Technology, you've had GDP, you've had Tesla. Let's look at Amazon. Amazon's under significant pressure with Meta. I keep talking about Meta all the time. Meta was down yesterday. Meta's going to go to $70 a share. I keep saying that. Amazon's also going to get down to $70 a share, because as we go into recession in 2023, and the recession will be a hard recession, it's going to be worse than 2008. There's going to be complete contraction and complete cutbacks of all costs across the board, from consumer spending all the way up to the big corporates, and the big corporates are going to start laying off staff. Remember, I said to you last week, Goldman Sachs is looking to lay off 4,000 employees. That's about 8% or 9% of its workforce. That's a bank. That's not a high-tech sector. That's a bank. So you're going to have a lot of companies laying off staff going forward, and that's going to increase unemployment now, and there is a big demand for labor out there, so I'm not too sure what the impact on unemployment will be, but with the high-tech sector laying off and the banking sector laying off, then you probably see unemployment increase in 2023 in the States to around about 6% level. Okay, the moment it's running about 3.7, probably go to about 6%, maybe 7% by end of 2023 as more layoffs come into line. Looking at foreign exchange, Bank of Japan on Wednesday increased the range of what it allows the yield on the Bank of Japan Samurai bond to take up to 0.5%. That means that is a slight tightening of interest rates could be on the way in Japan, the first in many years. I think it's 20 years, I'm not too sure. So the yield on the bond now becomes more attractive to buy into Samurai bond, which means you've got to buy yen to get that bond, and the yen shot up against the dollar. So those who are dollar yen traders would have seen a big drop in the dollar and a big rise in the yen on Wednesday and Thursday and also today. So that's something to take into account. Is the yen going to get stronger? Has there been a change in monetary policy in Japan? Not really sure yet. That's only one indicator. We'll probably need a few more indicators before we get a complete change in direction as far as Japan is concerned. With Canada having an increase in inflation, then Canada is going to also increase interest rates in January, probably by 50 basis points, because inflation there is not under control. Regarding commodities, gold went up to 1817, 1820 this week, floated all the way back down to below 1800, but looks like we want to breach that level and go higher. The dollar is going to be strong going forward. If there is a fear of further interest rates rising, going to get a rising dollar. The euro is likely to fall because Europe is in a recession, and therefore it's going to have a big impact overall on the euro. You can expect euro against the dollar to fall to about 95 to the dollar in 2023, maybe even lower. In fact, my 2023 target is more like 85 to the dollar in 2023, not 95, but short term be 95 to the dollar. Pound, I would like to see at around about the 127, 128 against the dollar. It's been sold off far too much. Big fan of the pound, expected to go higher going forward. As regards bonds, 10-year treasuries didn't really move yesterday. And what you're likely to have is the 10-year treasuries moving up to at 4.5 to 4.8% in 2023, and the divergence or the inversion between the 10-year and the 2 years just got wider, which indicates further a very serious recession on the way. This is Meir Volensky with Driving Markets. I want to wish you a happy Hanukkah and a Merry Christmas, and be safe and you should be successful. I hope you've enjoyed all of the YouTubes and all of the broadcasts of Driving Markets. You can share them with your friends, and hopefully they've been entertaining, giving that bit of knowledge. There was a question regarding someone courses. If you need anything regarding a beginner's course or any type of course, contact me and I'll refer you onto a online course to learn all about financial markets from beginners all the way up to super advanced level. All the best. Have a good weekend. Happy holidays.